Back once again, pod number 44, the four Bs, myself, Sir Never Look, Dr. Evil 10%, Mr. All In, and she was here, but she's never here, Mrs. No Show. How's everything going, boys?
Good.
Good.
I would say good, but everything just seems down at the moment.
Yeah, it's red. I've been looking. I need to go back to my no-look self. I've been getting so many messages about Bitcoin doing this, and are you not afraid? And I'm like, afraid of what? Oh, it's that low. So yeah.
You know what made me think that I thought we had a mini top? Obviously, because I've been selling a little bit to buy a property and stuff. A number of people know that they know what I'm doing. So as I was doing, obviously, I kind of I layered in my trades. So I started about 3 weeks ago and then just layered them over the last 3 weeks. I saw the price was kind of like trending up. So I'm like, okay, I'll just ride this trend, but ultimately I need the money. I know this is the worst trade ever, but I need the money. And then, yeah, and hopefully I can get a lot of it back in. But anyway, I knew when the market was about to go bearish again, because after I continued to sell, the price carried on going, went up like another 20% after that. And I start to get the messages going, what would you do if the price was to double in like the next 2 weeks? And people start getting overconfident because the price of Bitcoin just went up, I don't know, 4 or 5 days on the trot. And suddenly everyone gets bullish again. Everyone starts getting overexcited. And they start to almost gloat that, oh, maybe I'm going to really make a bad decision and it's going to be shown to me within weeks where, oh, wow, I could have bought 3 houses when the price of Bitcoin doubles or triples in the next 2 weeks. And then literally almost the second those text messages kind of stopped, the next day we dump. And then we continued to dump. And we're about 20-30% down from where we were then. You're like, yeah, the second people get a bit excited and start to gloat, Bitcoin always teaches us.
Yeah, that's the one.
Be humble and stack sats. Don't worry about the price.
See where they are. So I think if we're continuing on at this rate, obviously a pod a week, around about pod 250, then we should be really laughing, right?
Oh man, by like 150, we'll be pissing ourselves.
Yeah.
When I'm sitting there in my Ocean View complex, feet up on my desk, smoking a cigar, having a whiskey, and I'm just going, I fucking told you.
Everyone will be stressing that we've gone from 1.5 million to 1.2, and everyone will be running around going, Bitcoin's dead, and you've just seen it all before, boys. Seen it so many times before. It's just, Bitcoin's volatile. What's it going to do?
That's the one. And I do think it would be, I can't think how annoying I'll be when I tell them I told you so. I tried to tell you, tried to warn you.
Well,
I was helping you.
It'll be so, have a look. You were lucky.
Yeah, of course.
You were lucky.
Yeah.
Anyone could have had that luck.
Yeah, just like a lottery ticket, yeah. I was talking to someone online today where they were trying to discover what Bitcoin was. And they actually said, oh, I'm looking into it. A load of Bitcoiners kind of bombarded their Twitter replies, trying to educate them. This guy fundamentally just went, look, I don't get it. And I'm going to have fun staying poor, whatever. I don't get Bitcoin. And I was in the replies as well. And one person, of course I was in the replies, but one person replied to me saying, and I was very balanced in what I was saying. I was just literally just saying, because I think he said actually his final retort was, I'm not going to worry about the money. I'm just going to build a company that people want to buy the product for. And I just went, yeah, that's great. But how are you going to save the money that your business builds? Because if you save it in the wrong currency, that's the point of everything we're saying. That wealth of that business that you grow over decades will just evaporate if you save it in the wrong currency. And that's the whole point with Bitcoin, right? Someone replied to me saying, if I ever use Bitcoin as part of my day-to-day, I'll jump off a cliff. I just replied to him going, look, Bitcoin makes you self-sovereign and not using government. So if you want to jump off a cliff when Bitcoin becomes the standard, you do you, mate. Whatever. What are you on about? Not going to hurt me. You jumping off a cliff. Go.
Sounds like he doesn't want to let go of the government bitty.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's crazy though, right? Literally, we're just here going, here's a new form of money that's better. He's going, I will kill myself if that works.
Well,
dude, you're a bit emotionally attached to your government money.
Yeah. It's like, you got this government money where they're taking away somewhere between 3 and 5% on a really low year. And when they force something like a war, pandemic, whatever, they're going to take 15, 20%. So along with your taxes, you're taking that off them. So do you want to move to somewhere where you're not going to have that hidden tax, and also where you can go, the government has got limited money, therefore they must be accountable and can't just print themselves out of trouble, which is what's going on at the moment. So do you want to jump off a cliff for that, to go back into a worse world, or do you want to come along for the ride and actually see how the world could be run?
Nah.
No.
Nah. Exactly. I'm too used to what I know and what's been happening.
I'm far too proud, because when I first came across Bitcoin, I didn't get into it and I refused to change my mind.
Yeah. So much of it is ego.
It actually leads us quite nicely into those that don't like change in our news stories of this week. Should we start with the older of the two dinosaurs, of Charlie Munger?
I thought he was dead.
I was watching an interview with him, and I'll be honest, it was painful, because the pauses in between, and I don't think it was anything to do with the signal or the reception or anything. It was just like, okay, any minute now.
He's an old guy, isn't he? He's 95. So I don't even hold that against him. I'm like, he's actually got it together more than most 95-year-olds.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He never really has to think about Bitcoin and the implications of fiat, but because he's so rich, he's got it in assets, he's got it in cash, he's got it in stocks, he's probably got it in gold. So if something fucks up, he's always got a tradable. Doesn't have to worry. And he's going to be. And if he's not dead already, he's going to be dead soon.
Oh yeah, exactly. This is why I think this comment that he says in this interview, because both stories we've got about Munger and Buffett here, they're actually positive. They're not being positive towards Bitcoin directly. And actually, this week I've actually heard both of them. I think in extended versions of these interviews, Bitcoin did come up, and they threw it under the bus twice. But why we're talking about it here really is Munger in this interview actually predicts in 100 years, the US dollar will be worth 0.
Is it really going to take 100 years?
Well, exactly.
Good question.
Yeah, I think way sooner than that. But for someone like Munger to say that, he is like a cheerleader of the US government.
Oh, they are both pro-US, like, the best country on earth, never ever to be repeated again.
Yeah. And to say that their currency is going to 0 and inflation is the way that democracies die. And then he did reference Latin America, just as we have, and gone, look, this is not a conspiracy theory that people just talk about, that these things never happen. Like, inflation has gone into hyperinflation dozens and dozens of times over history. It tends to be Africa, Latin America, and then the odd European country here and there that it's happened to. But it can happen to North America. It can happen to China. It can happen to the UK. And he's just going, look, we've seen it before. It's happened in Latin America countless times. Once you have this type of hyperinflation, you get depressions and then corruption and just devastation for decades afterwards. Like, it's very, very hard to recover from this. And he can see it on the, in the mirror for America. And I don't know, it's kind of crazy to hear him, because he's right at the end of his life, right? He might as well just die being a cheerleader, say it's fine, inflation is transitory, America's great, no matter what happens, the Fed's got it, the US government's got it, whatever, we're the greatest, we can do what we want. But instead of going out like that, he's gone, yeah, they continue on the road they're on. It's the road to rack and ruin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if they try and bring in what's it called, CBCD, is it? And I always forget what the abbreviation.
Digital currencies. Yeah.
Oh, CBDC. Yeah, even if they bring in that, you're still trending towards zero because they're still inflating. So they're still making the dollar worthless. And at some point, it is just going to go. No matter they put you onto this silly system, which I think you're going to use because it's equivalent to Bitcoin, it's not, because they're still going to inflate it. And I thought what was really interesting about it is he uses the example which we use all the time on this pod. He used the Roman Republic. We always use the Roman Republic. He used Adolf Hitler. I don't know why he used Adolf Hitler, because Adolf Hitler didn't cause inflation. It was caused by the First World War, which caused Adolf Hitler.
That's why he's saying it. He's saying basically inflation causes Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
Fair
point.
That type of dictator comes from the ashes.
Yeah, from a really hard situation. Makes sense. And then Latin America, and he threw in what did he throw in? Greece and Asian, which I take to mean China, because we know that China had a collapse a few hundred years ago. We had Japan. So he's thrown in all these examples. Like, it doesn't just happen to the odd country. It happens when you're just getting over greedy. And that's what's happening. We're in the, what do they say? They say that there's an age, and we are the age of consumption. There's nothing beneficial coming out of the age at the moment because of the soundness of money.
Talking of which as well, I'm listening to the Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order of Why Nations Succeed and Fail by Ray Dalio. And naturally, he leans a lot on the US and what the US is doing. But he, in the book, for anyone that's just listening now, is like, it's a study from the last, I think, 500 years of nations and naturally their money and who becomes the leading principal, not only superpower, but then obviously the country that has the common denomination in terms of currency. And naturally, the way that the US is going, it's going to zero and another nation will take over. Don't need too many guesses as to who that might be. But in it, he says, since the 1700s, there's been 750 currencies. And guess what? Every one of those currencies have all gone to zero. I've read also when another book, When Money Dies, Adam Ferguson, every currency goes to zero. There will be no difference with the US dollar.
Was it in one of these articles? It talks about the British pound being one of the oldest currencies. I think it said since, was it 16 something?
So I think the British currency, British pound, is like the 1700s, I want to say.
Yeah, it's about 300 years old.
Yeah, 360 or so.
They said the buying power has gone down. Was it 99% or 95%?
Yeah.
Yep, same as the US dollar. That's why it's kind of hilarious when they say it's going to zero. You could actually argue that it already has.
Yeah.
If that was a shitcoin chart, you wouldn't be buying it, and we just laugh at it and move on. The only reason why it's kind of almost been accepted that it's gone down 99% is because it takes hundreds of years to do it. So you kind of don't notice. It's that constant 5 to 20% erosion every single year.
Well, if it's a shitcoin or rather a cryptocurrency and you got to pick your currency of your country, would you pick the dollar or sterling ever? As a person, as a government, I can see why you would, because you print your way out of trouble. But as an actual investor, someone who wants to live in that country and be prosperous, there's no reason to pick sterling, pick the dollar. It's like picking Dogecoin. Like, you're kind of hoping that some kind of like Hail Mary is going to come in and sort your life out for you. But how is it going to happen for you? Guaranteed, you're going to have 3 to 5% secret tax against your money, and maybe up to 25, 30%, or maybe if we get even really bad, it could be 500% out of your control as well.
And it's just really sad. Every time we talk about inflation, it's just so sad because there's such an easy solution to it as well that the rich do, which is just take your dollars or your pounds and just put it into the stock market and trap the stock market, because the stock market tends to keep pace or outpace inflation typically. So that's what the richest people, that's all they do. It's such an easy thing, and it's kind of a beautiful little scam because there's no real barriers for entry other than knowledge.
A little bit of knowledge, yeah.
which unfortunately the people that are working day to day with families, minimum wage, they're fighting against it. In reality, they probably just don't have enough money to even think about investing. But then the ones that even do, they get older and they have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50K in the bank. It's just been so much work to get that money. The last thing they want to do is essentially gamble it, which is then putting it into the stock market. And you go, no, you're actually gambling a losing trade constantly by holding that in cash. You should actually just put that into the stock market. And if you do get unlucky and you have a 10, 20% downturn, look, in reality, your money would have done that anyway. Just hold it and keep going. So it's just so sad, because every time we discuss it, it's always the people that don't deserve it, they're getting screwed the most. And the people that are rich, they know how to avoid it, because the loophole is totally public. We've known it for ages. You just start investing. And obviously the ultimate lifeboat is Bitcoin. But before Bitcoin existed, you just invest in the stock market or in property. But that isn't accessible to everyone. And it feels scary, and it shouldn't be.
I'd also go further to say as well that obviously the things that the common person is kind of, what's the word? They're kind of like immersed in is trash, essentially. Like, they're not really given any of that true knowledge. Like, I had to school my mum this weekend about the whole like the NHS, and she was just like, oh yeah, and people are getting like COVID because there's a bunch of workers in the NHS that won't get the vaccine. And I was just like, yeah, but mum, do you actually know the figure? And so I kind of had to like break it down and say, look, there's 1.3 million NHS workers. Of the 1.3, there was only around about 80,000, which makes it around about 6% of the NHS workers. Of that 6%, not all of them would be patient facing. So then you've got to like, obviously maybe even half that. So then you've got 3%. So you've got 40,000 people then spread amongst all of the hospitals in the UK. And guess what? It's probably not them. It's probably the walk-ins of other people. Like, so it's
okay,
not
the whole argument falls down once you realize that vaccinated people can get COVID and spread it as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just going along that line of education, I've been speaking to a family member about their investments, so using an IFA, and they basically get charged to put their money in, and they got charged for managing it. So they'd say it's handling your money, so that you have to pay 2% or something on your money going in. So you think if you're putting a block of, I don't know, what would it be, for every 10 grand, it'd be £200 is taxed off you for the 2%, and then you're having a management fee every year. And then on top of that, they're going to put in some kind of ETF or whatever, and you're going to make 5%. So literally in your first year, you're probably going to make about 2% if they can hit 5%, or you might be negative. And he's had the realization of this. So I said, if you're comfortable, I will go through all your investments, take it year by year, and do a comparison versus the S&P, and I'll help you set up an account. And it's just like, if you look at the S&P, it probably outperforms these funds, and you're going to pay 0.2% on these platforms as a fee overall. And it's just like that realization. And I think, yeah, I'm hopeful. And then I get down the Bitcoin route.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But at least reference someone like Ray Giello you just mentioned there, because I saw him in the press today, and he's doubled his allocation of Bitcoin, was recommended allocation from 1% to 2%. So he's
just lagging behind me.
Yeah, he's not. We'll call him Dr. 10% when he gets to 10, but at the moment he's at 2. We'll allow it. Yeah, he's doubled. He's gone from 1 to 2.
I mean, he's gone from not liking it at all and just, bastardizing it, like another investor that we'll come back onto in terms of Warren Buffett, to, you need it in your portfolio.
Yeah, well, that's what I'd recommend for people that were about to use a financial advisor, right? They are so far away from Bitcoin if you're in that world, because holy shit, it's like a stupidity tax when you walk into one of those guys. So you have to, number one, take accountability of your own money and your investments. But if you're advising someone, it should just be look, you have X amount of money here. Bitcoin could 100x and become your entire portfolio if you just put 1% in. And that 1% will end up being 99% of your portfolio if Bitcoin becomes the world reserve currency. Why are you not doing this? It's insane to not even bother putting 1% in. And then the other 99%, fine, if they're boomers and they're getting their virtue at retirement age, absolutely just track the S&P for the majority of it and let them ride it out at least. And then, but I'd even recommend they have a stack of cash as well if you're a boomer, because you never know. You might have a heart attack and you might get a diagnosis, and who knows? You don't want to be investing in the stock market now and then potentially have a 60% crash and they lose half their retirement funds and then get 6 months to live. That ain't what you want. So I'd have cash, I'd have an S&P, and then I'd have a 1 or 2% allocation of Bitcoin. And
we'll see. We'll see if I can get in the education around this, because they've been following me at IFA, and I said, IFAs are just salespeople. They are not market experts. They are selling a product, and those products rarely outperform the S&P. Like literally, well, actually, they don't do they at all. No, I think unless you're a multi-millionaire, multi-billionaire, you don't get in the club for those kind of things.
No, and in reality, it's extremely hard. Like there's something like, I don't even know what the stats are on the funds, but like nearly all the funds underperform the market. Nearly all of them.
And consistently, because when you go in with a fund, they can beat them 1 year, but you need them to beat them for 10 years.
Yeah, every year, 10 years on the bounce.
Yeah, because when you dig into the fund that beat the market, when you really look at it and they go, oh, look, they got some Uber shares really cheap, or like basically there be an outstanding kind of investment they made that just 100x, which suddenly took their normal kind of percent gains and tripled it or quadrupled it. And in reality, it was kind of like they got lucky on a 1 or 2 things. And it's like, well, can they get lucky again next year? In reality, no, that's like a once every 20-year thing.
Well, the wife has made me speak to an IFA because she wants to speak to one, but unless he's going to pull a rabbit out of the hat, it's not happening. And it's basically
waiting on his recommendations.
Oh, I've had he needs to look at various things like pension, etc. So it's going into that. So it'll take a bit, and then I also need to fill in a questionnaire, which I haven't done. But yeah, we'll look into it, and then I'll rip it apart in front of the wife. He'll be like, "Here's your fund. Give me the 10-year breakdown. Give me the breakdown of the funds. Give me the 10-year costs. Give me everything on there." And I'll go, "Here's the S&P. What the fuck are we doing speaking to this person? Your friend retired because he had an armed forces pension."
Yeah. Just do what I did to my financial advisor when I was like talking to them back in the day. I just went, I'm not going to pay you anything to manage the money. I'm not going to pay you any percentage per year guaranteed, but I will pay you 50% of the gains that you make over and above the S&P 500. 50%. Not a single financial advisor would take me up on that offer. I was like, 50% of the gains. You move my money around, and there's quite a big stack of money there. It's like, instead of 1% guaranteed, you can have 50%. But the S&P goes up by 5% and you do another 10, you get 5% of my money. If you manage to do it 20 or 30%, you get half of those gains. Dude, like that motivation, I would jump at the chance of that to manage someone's money.
Some clients and get on it.
Yeah. It might be actually a business idea to be a financial advisor and actually offer that. I reckon I could be just like soak up all the millennials' money and just go, yeah, I'm actually going to, I don't get paid if I don't make you money over and above the S&P.
Well,
it could be a good business idea.
In this literal next year, this is going to be the year of moving out of company style pensions. It's going to be a big revelation. I think we talked about this a couple of pods ago, but myself and Sir Neverlook are going to be looking at investing companies within the S&P. And I think I'm debating, because there's going to be an ISA, there's going to be a SIP, and it's whether to put the SIP with an S&P and the ISA with selected companies out of the top 20. And that's what I think is going to happen. Because, I don't need to look into anything else unless I'm pretty sure about a particular share. But I've got a couple of different shares, but I am kind of like to the point where I can't invest with the company pension. I know I can't. I mean, I think I've done my last payment. I need to now put it down to 0.
Right. Yeah. Same.
But I was just having a think about this today. I think the law was brought in, which has forced you to put a minimum of 1 or 2% into a pension. We'll have to see if I can get away with that, because I'll be doing my own pension, because I remember people moaning in work that they had to do it. You know, people who obviously had fuck all money saved up for their retirement in 20 years.
Yeah, just balancing on the strategy of hope.
Yeah, and you kind of are thinking, but you know, they can lease that car.
You know it. Just going back to also what you said earlier on, Dr. Evil 10%, about the family member and getting them to do 1 to 2%. You could present it in a way of, this is always going to be something that you can pass down as well, because as we know, the halving will continue when we're no longer here. So if that family member passes it down to their family member and siblings and so on, I think the year is 2164 or 84 when the halving's finally finished. So, you know, who knows what Bitcoin will be at that price and that time.
Well, it's going to be education, because like when I was talking to him about it, wife was like, he spends all his time talking about money and economics. and he reads book after book about it while she's reading some kind of romance novel on her Kindle. What am I reading at the moment? Who Stole My Pension? I'm right at the end of that one, and then I'm going to the property one. But yeah, and then I speak to yourself all the time about pensions. And she's like, yeah, he spent the last 3 years or so just constantly reading and researching. And yeah, they do know a bit. So it's getting a conversion from an IFA to actually being willing to invest into the S&P yourself. I think that's a big step. And then it's talking about a balanced portfolio. So it's things like property, shares, and the equivalent of a commodity. So commodity would be something like gold traditionally, but Bitcoin is the new gold. So it's looking at things like that.
Absolutely. And if anyone's got any comments, likes, shares, hit us up on the old podcast as well.
Yeah, views about splits in investments. Always interested.
Actually, yeah, really good. And I think next week we may bring to you something that I shared with you late last night as well, which is Coast to Fire. So essentially, if you get to it tracks your age, and then you pick the figure that you would like to have every year at your retirement age. You get to that figure, and then you just leave the money to then track with like investments and inflation. And essentially you'll get there without having to put in any more money after a certain point. And that would be really interesting to pick up on tomorrow's meal.
Yeah, no, I used that back in the day. You know what? It's great. There's the little formula, isn't there? You put in how much you want and how old you are and all that. The problem is, I jumped out the system well before my number. It's just the number was just unrealistic, because what it doesn't really factor in is if you've got real confidence in your investments, especially when it's Bitcoin. It's like this, it's going to 10x in the next 5 years. This formula doesn't allow that kind of growth to be kind of baked in, because it's just I can't guarantee it, but I'm very confident. So I just went, I'm jumping out now. I value my time, and I don't give a shit about formulas. Bitcoin's going to take over, 100% conviction. And then I jumped out, and it paid off. But that's the problem with all these things, right? You can't really predict the future. Like the S&P 500, you can, but it's boring. And when you put your numbers into these formulas, it ends up like when I put my numbers in, and obviously you want to live quite well, it ends up being like in your 50s or something. I was just reading this, I'm like, what a load of bollocks. Like I'm going for it. I'm just going to back myself. I'm getting out. I'm going in. Because the thing is, it also assumes that out of the money that you make, you're not going to build a company, or if you do hit on bad times, go get a job again. I've not ruled myself out of getting a job. I haven't ruled myself out of starting a company that needs to earn money.
So the back of a train station.
Yeah, exactly. Every £2.50 helps. And, so yeah, I think it's always like I almost wouldn't treat retirement like we treat retirement too much as a finality.
I think it's also, if you can get a lumps. We talk about, everyone's like, I need over £1 million for retirement. Well, what about you've paid off your home? What about buying more property? then you can have a passive income. If you bought two or three properties from your massive pension, which won't pay for your retirement because it hasn't hit £1 million, couldn't that pay your pension because it's giving you probably, a couple of grand every month? That's an option for certain.
There's a million ways of doing it. You just got to be creative, man. It's just, anyone can do it. It's not that complicated. You just got to really focus on it. And you got to probably spend 10 years driving towards a goal. Once you get all your money aligned and you're earning good money and saving good money, getting to investments, provided you got conviction in those investments over the next 50 years, you can have the confidence to go, I'm going to cut off the stabilizers, which is my wage, and buy your life back, and then let your money just roll. And yeah, you can't live exactly how you wanted, or maybe completely as lavishly. Of course, you'd have more money, because having more time also is expensive. I've noticed that. I've had 3.5 years pretty much not working. I'm out doing stuff all the time. The second you leave your house, you're spending money.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things about working is it keeps you indoors 5 days a week, so you can't spend money. And being out and about, it's costly. So, but I would always just encourage people to do it. The worst case scenario is it doesn't work out. You go back to work. It's not the end of the world. There's a little bit of shame, a little bit of tail between your legs, but at least you gave it a fucking shot. So just do it. I would encourage anyone.
I look at that and I think, well, yeah, but so what? I'm doing exactly what all of you are doing until the age of what you're doing. And I had a little break, or I've still got X, Y, and Z in the background going off. So what?
You can just tell people that you're taking, or what do they call it, where you're taking a sabbatical. I'm taking sabbatical, taking it for a year. You're going back to work now. Now I'm taking 2 years sabbatical. Taking 3. Having it turned into a 15-year sabbatical. We're like, you ever go back to work? No. I've figured it out now. And I think this is kind of what I was talking about on pensions investments, which I suppose it started probably 6 years amongst us as a group talking about investments.
Yeah, right.
And it has been that education. You're saying it's taking 10 years to get your money aligned. It's probably about accurate. Yeah. So I feel like I'm not close yet, but I'm so far along that journey. And I look at people who I work with, I look at my friends, and they just have not got a clue. That kind of relates back to Sir Neville, but people aren't educated in this. You're going to have to educate yourself. In reality, children should be educated for how to retire, how to manage their financials, but they're not. They want you to be in the system, paying in and being a slave to a wage.
And changing people's mindset, that's a uphill struggle and a half as well, because you are unwiring the hardwiring that they've had over years and years.
Well, I talked to my dad about it, because I've mentioned Mr. Orlin saying he's retired by the age of 35, and he's like, oh, but there's nothing to do. I'm like, if I retired now, I would make my kids breakfast, take them to school. I would go out for a cycle, hit the gym. I would probably do a lot of research about investments, spending most of my day doing what I want to do. And I could probably make up 5 days of that easy. And I'm like, I'd actually enjoy myself not having to do what people tell me to.
It makes me so sad to hear another human being say that not working, there's nothing to do other than that.
Well, this is it. He retired.
Have a fucking imagination, dude.
He retired when he was like 63, really well. But it was like, I don't understand this, because you're kind of going, let's spend all my life in work. It will keep me mentally stimulated. It's like, I've got enough hobbies which will keep me mentally and physically stimulated.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah, this is the whole problem, right? We didn't used to be like this. If we go back just a couple of 100 years, we would be working, but we'd be working for the extent that was just enough to feed the family. We'd be working the land, we'd be making products, and pretty much once you made enough to feed the family, you would then just knock off, and then you'd like sing songs, you'd like play games, you just enjoy your life. And somewhere we got so lost, we got so kind of pushed into consumerism that now you just keep working no matter how much money you earn, because that just gets you further up the stuff list. And and the list of stuff is infinite. Basically, it just keeps going. So even if you're Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, We still haven't got all the stuff, because if you've got a rocket that goes to Mars, no, well, you need one.
Shaped like a giant penis.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, we mention it all the time: cars, coffees, TVs. There's even cool things for taking notes, which will transfer your notes into digital form. And that's the kind of all the things which you can waste your money on. You can find something every week of a year if you had limited money, which you'd have to buy, which looks pretty cool, but in essence, it's just nothing.
Yeah, something really bad happened where we glorify work and we look down on being a family person. Like, being a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mum is almost seen as lazy, and anyone could do that. And if you got
it's sexist as well.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a better job for someone than to bring up their family.
Well, exactly.
Honestly, I don't. That's the most important thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it should be coveted. It should be like being, a CEO of a company. Like, if you can do that job well, it's the most important job you can possibly do.
For sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's super hard. Yeah, super challenging. No training. You're just straight in from baby to 18-year-old. Whole world of pain there. That's like starting a company and then IPOing it. It's the same, and all the same challenges. But we demonize family, and we like build up work. So everyone, like women included now, all want to just work and put all their kids into care all day, 8 hours a day, see them for an hour before bed, and then they can't. And that is seen as success. And if you retire early, oh no, now I have to spend loads of time with my kids and I have to bring them up myself. Oh, I don't want to do that because they're in childcare. So what do I do with my day? Oh, I'm just bored. Like, no, number one thing to do is you bring up your fucking kids.
I saw a post, and I think it was a UK person. And I had a child. I'm not the mothering type. I couldn't wait to go back to work. So and everyone thought I was heartless, put him in childcare early. But he's what's the correct word for it? He's fulfilled himself in childcare, and I'm glad to be back at work. And it's like, this isn't right. And I just read it and went, this is so sad. And this another problem with LinkedIn, when I just spend my time muting and hiding what people say because I just don't want to know. I want to know about work. But I was just like, you completely lost your direction in life. It's just so bad.
Yeah. What's every kid say when their parents are like dying or ill? Like, what's the one thing that they wish their parents did more for them? And it's always
time. Spend time.
Time. Always time. It's never money. It's never, I wish I had that latest toy. It's, I wish you just played football with me a little bit more. Or we had that chat about those conversations about his childhood. That's what people say. And you can do that if you just tone back your consumerism and spend more time with your children, because that's all they want. They want your time. They don't want your money. So I mean, we're very lost, which is why I like Bitcoiners, right? Bitcoiners are massive family people. We're all about being self-sovereign, and all we want to live the simple life on a ranch, being self-sustained, few cows, chickens, goats, bit of land, and you bring up your family with like-minded other families. You all socialize together. You educate your kids together. They grow up, do their own thing, buy a bit of land. So
basically what you're saying is we're going to have to buy some land right near to where you live once Bitcoin moons.
Essentially, yeah.
And then we can have our own little like hippie commune where we raise chickens and goats.
Yeah, man, it's the citadel. It's the dream.
We kind of got off a bit off course on this one, but I'll try and put us back on course because we're talking about Charlie Munger, and you mentioned that it was conviction, and retiring early with something she believed in. But I'll kind of flip this onto what's going on in Canada, and some of the aspects which we've seen, probably starting with what the CEO of Kraken said. Because they are making a play for Bitcoin now because it's seen as funding terrorism. So what's your kind of thoughts around that with someone getting into Bitcoin now?
Yeah, it is big. It's big because I guess essentially it's one of them where, we put it in the notes, not your keys, not your cheese. That's never been more important. And this is, and Jesse Powell, the CEO of Kraken, and then also Brian Armstrong. So I think Jesse Powell, Kraken, they are a Canadian-based company. So obviously they're right under the microscope right now, being what Canada are doing. But Brian Armstrong of Coinbase also came out saying the same thing. which, yeah, it's, if you're getting into Bitcoin now, your education process needs to be faster, because the worst thing that could happen to you is, yeah, you finally figure out Bitcoin, you start buying on an exchange, but then just like your bank account, your exchange account gets frozen, or they claim it, or whatever might happen, whether you make a misstep, or maybe they just do it Canada-wide or UK-wide, whatever. So figuring out the education process is going to be even tougher for people coming in, because you're not just going to have to understand Bitcoin by a little bit. You're going to have to kind of skip straight to, right, you also need to understand hardware wallets. You also have to understand 24 words, sending a Bitcoin using an address, get the addresses right. It's tougher, but you're going to have to do it. You're already late. The building's kind of on fire. So the time to come in and collect your belongings slowly is kind of over. The building's fucking raging on fire now. You have to run in, get your precious items, and run out. And unfortunately, in this case,
and stay calm.
Yeah, don't fuck it up, because you'll steal from yourself by making a mistake instead. So
correct. But I think that's when, to the exact same point, you start dipping into shit coins.
Yeah, please,
because you'll feel like you've already missed the boat, and it's like in that wacky warehouse where there's all those doors. Yeah,
and the boat's firmly waiting for you to jump on board.
Imagine a wacky warehouse where you've got all those doors, and it's saying the exit at the very end in front of you, but along the sides you've got all the shit coins. You think, why do I want to go all the way down there, even though it says exit? I'll try these doors first on the left and the right, and every one of them's got a brick wall behind them. And until you finally realize, I should have just gone with the exit at the end, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, because this is Jesse here. He's even saying, get your coins cash out and only trade peer-to-peer. This is, and you can't get, he's literally telling you here, don't use my business that I'm literally the CEO of and would benefit. So this is again, the good thing about Bitcoin is that, like, obviously exchanges are necessary. We need them. We need these big trusted companies that are secure, have good onboarding, they're technically regulatory compliant. But he's even saying, if we get a request from the Canadian government, or pretty much any government, that says we need to freeze someone's account, and they need to give zero reason or rationale as to why that account needs to be frozen, Jesse here confirms we will 100% freeze it, and it will happen, because people like Justin Trudeau will just bring out new emergency measures that means they can bypass the law, and in an emergency, freeze funds from any citizen that they deem a terrorist. And once they deem you a terrorist, your funds get frozen for as long as they feel like it. And so Jesse is just replying to this going, yeah, if Justin Trudeau gives us a list of people to freeze their account, we will 100% do it, and it's 100% going to happen.
Do we refer to Trudeau or Castro?
Oh, yeah.
Justin Castro, yeah, absolutely.
I turned to research, apparently it's the nipples. He's got brown nipples. His dad had pink nipples. His mum and dad have pink nipples, and he has brown nipples, which suggests that Castro had brown nipples. So somewhere brown nipples got in the mix. Where'd the brown nipples come from, Justin? I'm just saying, where'd the brown nipples come from?
Yeah, I think, it's absolutely terrifying seeing a CEO of Kraken say that, one of the biggest exchanges, because I always think of Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini, and Binance as the exchanges off the top of my head. So when one of those four says, don't fucking keep your coins on our exchange, you kind of go, oh shit. Like I do keep some on Coinbase, but nowhere, not a lot. It's basically just when I get around to moving my DCA.
Yeah.
But
and of course all the free lessons that you get. But I also think as well, the propaganda that's out there will purposefully tell people to, or purposely put people off Bitcoin as well. So it just so that they can actually get in. I feel like, as we always say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. It's a little bit like the new gold again, isn't it? It's like, well, we know that we can't necessarily confiscate it off you, but we'll tell you, don't do it. It's wrong. You shouldn't do it. It's a con. It's a scam. You'll lose all your money. But on the side,
I think there's a big difference between the two. You know, like gold was, we fucked up our money. We needed a way of rebalancing the balance sheets, whereas Bitcoin is not going to be rebalanced the balance sheet. We just want it to go the fuck away because we want to keep on printing ourselves to oblivion till I'm dead. Then it'll be someone else's problem because I don't give a shit about anyone else because I'm a sociopath.
But it's also that your money is not going into them. It's being taken away to obviously a brand new asset class as well. When you're, taking your money out of the bank, you're putting it straight into an exchange, which is like the new form of a bank, essentially. And it's not being held with them, which then allows them to, as we know, make more money as well. Yeah. And create more money.
Yeah, because weirdly, I do think I think you're right. It probably will scare some people off Bitcoin because they'll see some addresses getting frozen, some exchanges saying, don't hold your coins here. And they're going to go, well, hold on. What do I do if I don't hold my Bitcoin with you? What do I do? But then what I do think this has done is, because the first thing they went for was all the fiat. So all the Canadian dollars and all those bank accounts, they got frozen. And in reality, what they've done is they've frozen some Bitcoin addresses. But all they've done, they can't freeze a Bitcoin address, right? You can still send it to whoever the fuck you want. All they've done is marked them as these people sent funds in. So if you keep doing the thinking and keep just going down that rabbit hole, the people that have donated Bitcoin to the truckers, they have been blacklisted by the Canadian government. But all you need to do is move those coins a couple of times, do a bit of a coin join in there, maybe send it for a Lightning transaction as well, and your coins are now clean again. With a bank account, you are 100% screwed. They are KYC'd under your name. It doesn't matter what you do. You have to open up another account. You have to KYC your identity in again. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can just fire up a new device, a new wallet, send your Bitcoin to that new wallet after a coin join, and you're clean. You're good to go again. But it's hard. So I think...
But I think part of the problem is because it is regulated, it's going back to a person already. So we know, people who donated. So like the fact you probably donated, Mr. Orlin, you're on the Canada shit list.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah, you are right.
So because you've been through the KYC process.
It depends which wallet I donated from though. Because and if I donate through Lightning as well, I'd always donate through Lightning because Lightning's private.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit of an education piece for me. I didn't realise. But yeah, good to know. Brilliant. Now I know how to donate, because I was thinking I want to donate, but I don't want to.
It's over. It's over now anyway, because the emergency act worked. They went in and arrested everyone.
So the truckers and the protesters are no more.
No, they arrested everyone.
Yeah.
And did you see the latest policy that they put out just before they arrested everyone in the emergency act? They put out, because people brought their families. So because they brought their families, because they knew they were staying there for weeks, to literally wait the government out and go, we're here for the long term. Like, you need to stop these mandates. They also brought their dogs. So they, as part of the Emergency Act, they put out, we will look after your dog for 8 days, but at your cost. After 8 days, you relinquish the right to that pet, i.e., we kill it. So they've arrested all these truckers. Guess how long they're going to hold them for? They haven't said, but who's to say it's not going to be longer than 8 days? So they're going to get them at them all by freezing their bank accounts and killing their dogs.
And also, I did read something about they're going to bring in the child services. So any kids found there, they're going to be put into care. I don't know how true that one was, but I know the dog one was true. But it's, I feel that the fact it's over, it's kind of, whilst some people may think that the Canadian government have won, they haven't there. That's a complete and utter loss, because they've moved from what's meant to be a democracy with a liberal left government to being a dictatorship. You know, it's actually probably one of the most scariest things, and like kind of going on a bit of a on a bit of a tangent. It's made me kind of like really reconsider all the Great Reset stuff with what's been going on, because it's so extreme. Like this is the most
so quick as well. It went
so
from 0 to
quick,
100.
Yeah, so quick, so extreme, and from a caring government. And if you look back on all the stuff which Trudeau's seen, I think I saw a clip today where it's saying, you know, I don't want to be this government's in tyranny, blah blah blah, and it's just like he said all these things, and it's from 2015, and literally just ticked off all the things which he's done in the last week, how bad he is. And I'm kind of going, and no one stepped in. You know, like the UK, the US, they should have given sanctions for what they've done.
Yeah, and you got Klaus Schwab saying openly he's really proud of infiltrating governments around the world with their young politicians, and Trudeau is there on the WF website as one of them. And you go, here he is. Here's someone that started off with good intentions, young,
he didn't.
right politician.
He didn't.
Well, maybe he didn't. Maybe
I'm going to say he's from a shithouse family. His father was a shithouse, and he's a shithouse.
Maybe he just literally was all a lie. Because when you hear him, because I must admit, I don't really know the guy. I've just seen clips, and when I hear the clips, I'm like, he's that guy.
He's an actor.
Yeah, and I would have voted for him. He reminds me of a young Tony Blair. But then the second they get in, they turn and they just become the same dictator that they always were. And it was all a lie. And obviously now we look at it and go, oh, who are really connected to the WF, which is the Great Reset? Tony Blair's in there. Trudeau's in there.
Tony Blair was always a shithouse. You could see he's a creepy little shit. And Trudeau's just after his dad. His dad was a lefty who admired Castro. And even let his wife get porked by him.
and
he didn't even use a condom.
that's the ultimate of communism, when you literally share your wife with him.
I mean, we kind of bled into another story around the because I think there were two marked around the different funds, but I think the Canadian news is absolutely massive in Bitcoin space, whether you agree or not with Trudeau's approach to truckers. The whole thing about freezing assets is such a big plus point for Bitcoin. That is, you work so hard for this money, like these truckers, I don't know, what do they earn, like 30, 40 grand a year? They've saved up £5,000, they want to take their family on a holiday. They work so hard for this money. It's not your money anymore.
Yeah, and naturally as well, it's not really appearing in the news. Surprise, surprise. You have to go and find it and look it up and follow it. So it is there, but it's not being touted from everybody else in the mainstream media of, oh, did you know this has happened and so forth.
But funnily enough, when I have looked at the articles, British, American, they have been very against what Trudeau's been doing, but they haven't been like global headlines.
No, but they've had the perfect distraction, haven't they? Like we always say, there's always a distraction when stuff happens. So, oh, look, Putin bad. Look how bad Putin is. Let's throw. It's either Russia or China every fucking time. It gets boring. And it's like, I don't give a shit about Putin or whoever is the.
Has anything actually happened? Because I've read, oh, they've invaded, but I'm like, have they actually?
No, there hasn't been a single bullet fired yet. So until it does, I don't give a fuck. Because when I look over at Canada, that should be headline news. Yeah. That is happening right now. Like literally, there's little old grannies that donated $100 to the truckers who have had their bank accounts frozen. That is news because it's little old Canada, very similar to the UK. Yeah, you'll hear nothing about.
Here we go. So,
I do think Putin can cut a promo as good as any WWE wrestler, though.
Oh, he's great at pretending to be like the big dictator, like big Russian man. I shoot everybody. He's like, was that good? Believable? No, one more. Do it again.
Yeah.
Come on.
Heel, amazing.
So here we go. Daily Mail, top article. Putin's poodle parliament authorizes use of force outside Russia, paving the way for attack on more of Ukraine after he sends 10,000 troops into Russian-held separatist areas.
Yeah, see how even that headline's a lie to attack more of Ukraine. Like, they haven't attacked any of it yet.
Exactly.
It's like the war's already started. No, it hasn't. They're just moving people around. Literally, you've got soldiers walking around. That is the headline at the moment. And then they're all assuming they're going to start fighting. Are they, though? Okay, well, when they do, like, let me know. But right now, I think you're just trying to distract me from Canada and the COVID scam because you're trying to brush it all under the carpet.
I mean, I do think it's worthwhile to be vigilant and aware, of course, because the words that Putin's using, it's not like he's going over there for a game of dominoes. You know, he's definitely looking to do some harm and damage. So they should be on standby. But you're absolutely right in terms of nothing has actually happened. So, you know, he's been slapped with the classic sanctions as the first slap on the wrist, and we'll see if that actually halts his thoughts.
It makes me laugh. I love it when they put sanctions on bank accounts, right? Because I don't think any money even changes hands. The only thing that hands between Russia and the rest of the world pretty much is oil and
natural gas. Natural gas.
Yeah, it's basically our energy, and we are reliant on Russia hugely in like the UK for our energy. So it kind of makes me laugh that we are supposedly be really harsh on Russia, going, fuck you, we're going to cut off your like banking routes into the rest of the world. Yet all they would need to do to completely turn Europe into a fucking wasteland is going, oh, you don't want any oil or gas then, no? Off. And we would be in fucking chaos. And they haven't done any of that. Putin doesn't even threaten it. He's like, oh no, you've sanctioned me. Hold me back. Okay, I'll stop it. Like, what is going on? This is such a fake fight. Like, Russia have got all the cards. Like, we're going to cut off your banking. Putin would be like, I make up my banking. I have a money printer, you silly dicks. Like you want oil and gas. I can just like cut off your oil and gas. I think the UK or something, or Europe, are like 30 or 40% of our oil and gas comes from Russia. They have all the cards. They just switch that off, and that's the ultimate sanction.
And you know, we're going towards gas power plants. They're closing down all the nuclear ones. Like Germany have gone on a close down all the nuclear, but we hate Russia. And it's just like, so it's not just gas for supply to houses; it's gas to power stations, which are be struggling with. And the fact that Europe has gone, oh, we don't like nuclear, we're going to have gas.
Yeah, you're right to never look. This is literally WWE.
Yeah.
That is the best analogy I've ever heard about it. That is it. Load of fake beefs just to sell a pay-per-view on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Kind of going back to the original stories, because there are a cluster of stories around this one, because there's a banning of the Bitcoin as well, which is the second part of this one. And Elon Musk tweeted out, which I think he got slammed for a bit, which was comparing Trudeau to Hitler.
Yeah, but Hitler had a budget.
Exactly.
That was his joke, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He deleted the tweet, I've noticed. It was there for ages.
Yeah. I was just going to say I clicked and I didn't see it.
Yeah, so something went wrong. But there was loads of articles written about Elon comparing Trudeau to Hitler. So I'm guessing that tweet got so much attention that Elon went, all right, I'll delete it. Because comparing Trudeau to Hitler. Yeah, it's sad. But it's still funny that Elon is still kind of, I still like him. He's still, even though he freaking shitcoins and he just loves Doge, he does come in occasionally and just dunks on these politicians for these crazy mandates and crazy laws that they do. And literally in comparing Trudeau to Hitler and saying at least Hitler had a budget, it's true, man. It literally is true. So it's a meme, but it's also true.
Yeah, will always be a staple feature on the podcast. Elon will always be back in some way, shape, or form.
Hopefully their PR person never gets that Twitter account out of his hands, because the day Elon leaves Twitter, or the only tweets that come out are PR press releases or something, will be super sad, because I love Elon on Twitter. When he's just scrolling late at night and just dunking on people, it's like, there's no one better. He's literally he's the richest guy in the world, but he's still a pleb. You can just tell he's still a pleb. He's one of us. He's not corrupt. He's not playing the game. He's just He says it as he sees it. You just know he does. He's not going, oh yeah, I know that's loads of corrupt, but I need to be nice to that guy because I want a deal. He just goes, fuck Canada then. I don't doubt like Tesla and SpaceX, but I have a lot of business in Canada, but he doesn't give a shit about memeing the Canadian president and calling him Hitler. Like, he doesn't care.
When you say most of his customers are also lefties as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of woke people in there. Yeah.
So you kind of think about they'll have offended their poster boy.
Oh yeah. If I'd imagine ever since Elon came out against COVID, saying that essentially it was pretty much a scam and he didn't close any of his factories down, and that was right in the middle of 2020 when he went on Rogan to talk about all that. I remember a lot of the like Twitter people that I followed and the Reddit subreddits that I followed that were Tesla related were calling him out, being super offended, saying, I'm going to take my Tesla back, all this stuff. But ultimately, it hasn't affected Tesla's share price whatsoever or their sales of cars. So as with anything, these woke leftists who were just virtue signalists, they were just virtue signaling.
Yeah. They want to keep the Tesla because there's no comparable product to a Tesla at the moment, is my understanding.
Exactly, yeah. They all tweeted that they were going to take their Tesla back. They didn't.
I mean, we can kind of like cap off these 2 or 3 stories with Trudeau's a shithouse.
Yeah.
Simple as. And I hope he gets found out soon, but it looks like it's over, unfortunately. So I was hoping that he's going to be the one who's dragged out from his home.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, like it's whoever's got the most guns. So it'd be interesting to see what Canada do now, because there's obviously countries opening up all around the world. And if he goes back to doing the mandates and lockdowns, he's kind of on his own now. So it's going to be interesting to see whether he actually just does what the truckers wanted anyway, but still arrests them and punishes them as if they didn't win. But in reality, he's probably going to have to just go, yeah, the mandates are lifted.
Yeah, I feel like I feel he's just lost. Like, there's no winning move which he could have when he went in so deep on this. Like, he needed to negotiate and speak to them at the time, and he didn't. I suppose I'm trying to think what the natural progression would probably be going south of the border of Canada down to the US, and what's Biden, or rather his government, up to. I was going to say Biden's probably pissing his pants at the moment, but his government are starting to look into crypto.
Yeah, I was going to say Biden's been pretty, correct me if I'm wrong, pretty quiet as well. Like, he doesn't necessarily do a lot of press interviews, not, in comparison to Trump. Everybody's quiet, right? But I did think that he'd be a little bit more outspoken. And I think from the information that I was reading about the whole Ukraine and Russia saga, that Putin feels good to do this against Biden because he's seen as weak, whereas I don't think that he would have tried it had Trump been in power, or even maybe Obama as well.
Yeah, remember this is WWE, so
yeah, exactly.
Biden being a dementia patient doesn't make the US military any less big.
No.
So, yeah, Putin thinking that Biden's weak is just I don't really buy that. But this one, I actually do think this story is probably the biggest story of the week by far. It could even be the biggest story of the year, because this is one that I actually talked about 2 weeks ago, and I think was the reason why Bitcoin took such a turn for the worse on price. It had a little bounce, and I think it had a bounce like a week ago just because people forgot about this news. And ultimately, this is Biden is coming out of an executive order. So executive orders are very scary because they don't need to be voted on. Once he just writes an executive order, it just goes into law. And it's going to be about the regulation of cryptocurrency. So I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago because this really could set the foundation for how America are going to treat Bitcoin for the next 10 years. He could, in theory, this week, ban Bitcoin. This could be America's banning of Bitcoin. It could be further regulation. It could be you're not allowed to have custody of it. It could be the gold thing, where you're not allowed more of an ounce of gold on you. You have to hold it on an exchange, a US government approved exchange. It could be anything in here. And at the moment, Bitcoiners, and I think especially US investors are terrified of what Biden is going to say in this. Obviously, we're saying Biden's a dementia patient. He's just that it's the US people that have brains behind the scenes. And obviously, up until now, we've only had Elizabeth Warren that's talked about Bitcoin, and she's talked about it as a fund for terrorism, funding terrorism. It boils the oceans, and it's a threat on our democracy. We've had her on 3 or 4 times.
I was going to say Janet Yellen as well. And I think we've had the world's best investor, Nancy Pelosi. I think she said a few outtakes, so they've all been negative. We know it was a few senators who are pro Bitcoin though,
but lower down, aren't they?
But like
I was going to say,
this could be really, really bad news, because what I think the 3 people just listed there, Warren, Yellen, and Pelosi, it could be an amalgamation. Because in the end, like all those 3 people weren't thinking from their brains what they were saying then. They were getting fed lines. It was very clear they were getting fed lines. So whoever fed them those lines to say and just diminish Bitcoin, I think has written an executive order to get the president to sign. And he signs it this week and he announces what is in it. And I don't think it's going to be good. And I think my prediction is it could be devastating to the price of Bitcoin this week. And then we could see a big rocket down, because we see rockets down when China ban it or India ban it. If the US come out and ban Bitcoin, it could be big. And not in a good way.
I don't think it'll be bad.
Yeah, I just want to explore that, because I think it could be bad, but I would also like to think that they would have America first. So you mentioned a couple of like outcomes. It could be more regulations. It could be a straight ban. You might not be able to have self-custody, but it may not be that we have the answers right here, right now. But I think, and it may be one for us to pick up tomorrow in person and then bring back to the next week's show. But something that benefits America, but not necessarily the consumer.
Well, I don't think it's going to be a ban. I think it's going to be a regulation. So it could be custody. It could be something along those lines, but it's going to be a regulation. So in this article which you've shared, it says the order will also look at measures to protect consumers, investors, and businesses. So I feel it's not going to be a ban, but it's going to be a regulation about how it's sold or how it's kept. I don't know what extent, because it's covered under assets anyway in various different money laundering asset guises. So, I mean, it wanted to look at the impact on the environment. But, we've got another story which goes against that, and we kind of know it's all a load of shite. And then there's another bit which says it's a study which will look at CBDCs.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
It'll be hard to get them out of a CBDC when it's first launched, but that may just be the end of the dollar anyway. Yeah. So it could just be the quickening when they go, oh, it's all digital now. Let's print 50% per year.
Well, exactly that. This is what I mean. I think if we think about it, whatever they do, it may be that they are trying to use this regulation or whatever announcement that then helps springboard into CBDCs, which then gives them control back. And I also think that the US were kind of potentially behind the curve to the likes of China, the Kazakhstans of this world, and so on, that have been mining for a long time. So yes, the US picked up 50% of the mining capacity once China had stopped, but they got all of the cheap sats earlier on when the block sizes were bigger. So, maybe I just think that if anybody in his office or in and around in that circle has a clue around Bitcoin, they will be advising him, look, we need to catch up. Let's do something that continues to keep America first. That's how I always see, as an outsider looking in, their mentality, America first. But you've got to ride this gravy chain.
You've got to think ego as well. So will it be try and bat Bitcoin down? I mean, the threat of other countries adopting. So we're hoping that, what's his name, Max Kaiser, his words are true, and we end up with a Turkey or even a Guatemala or whoever else. Though I think we're all quite bullish around this. We think it's going to be a couple of countries this year. So I think with those couple coming in, it could force their hand. So it's not going away, but then it could be, like you said, custody and miss could be something which we talked about earlier, the gold, getting it onto their banks so they can have custody of it, so therefore they can give paper Bitcoin at a later date and take it away and go, yeah, we're backed by Bitcoin. But then Bitcoin becomes a commodity like gold in the future.
Yeah. Because from what I can see, that seems to be the model. It seems to be, because China they're just a perfect country to watch and just go, every other country does what they do. They just hide the way they're doing it because they actually care what people think. China don't give a shit. So China's come out and ban it. And really what they do when they ban it, it just means, look, time out. Like, we don't know what the fuck this is. We're scared about it. So we're going to just ban it now, figure out how to regulate it, and then bring it back. And then Russia kind of did the same thing, but probably more convoluted. But what they've both ended up with is that we know we can't stop this. So what we're going to let you do is have a couple of exchanges that we pretty much own, or at least have a very strong footprint in, and you can't take custody of the coins once you put them on the exchange. So what I fully expect America probably to do here is probably bring out some form of regulation that, number one, is very climate change focused, with proving all miners have to be X% of green energy or whatever. But what I'd imagine is that the exchanges are going to have a huge amount of regulation to tie into the US government, just as the social media companies all had to, which now means they can censor it well. They're going to want to censor it well, the exchanges. And I think what it will be is a large step towards what Russia and China are doing, which is self-custody is a thing of the past. So it's just a matter of time then until what they did with gold and confiscating it all happens again, because all the people that have access to buying Bitcoin now can't send it out of the exchange. It's stuck there. And they'll always go, look, it's fine. It's an IOU. Like, yeah, it's fine. It'll always be there until it's not. And then they take it and they start obviously printing more CBDC dollars than they have of Bitcoin. So they'll say, yeah, fine, want a Bitcoin standard now, but they'll start printing more dollars over and above the Bitcoin they have in reality in 10, 20, 30 years time. The amount of Bitcoin they have is now inconsequential, just as it is with gold. And we're back to a fiat standard again because they stole all the Bitcoin. So that's what I think will be a big step, because, I think that the time of just countries coming out and banning Bitcoin is a little bit, it's just too obvious and people resist that. So it's much smarter to make a big step towards regulation around climate change, and then probably around access to exchanges, with the next set of regulation that's coming will be you cannot withdraw it anymore. And essentially, really, when you do that, when you grab the top 10 exchanges in the world and you regulate them to a point where withdrawal of your coins is now illegal, that's big. Like, we really need some proper solutions there to go, where do we send our newbie mates?
I'll go one step further in terms of that as well. So I could definitely see the non-custody ability to happen. But then also, I think in the background, they'll work on how do we tax these fuckers? Because we've been missing that as well.
It's the unrealised gains, but I think they got battered away because they put it into that big infrastructure bill, which was like this, and everyone just went, fuck off. This is a pile of shit. Like, they're like, but we're going to give money to the taxpayers. It's like,
that got passed.
I thought a load of it didn't.
That whole bill got passed in the end. There was loads of objections to loads of it. So the Bitcoin bit had loads of objections. In the end, they just went, there's not enough time for all this. This is an emergency infrastructure bill, and they just passed it.
Yep.
I thought there's stuff about the unrealised gains in there.
Yeah, all just got passed. It's just it's not, none of it comes into law immediately, but it all got passed technically.
And it makes me think that it'll all be thought of in the background, is that, but how do we actually collect on it? Oh, we'll work on that in the end, later on. But in the meantime, let's pass it.
It'll be the
Let's
unrealised.
make sure we're there.
It'll be the unrealized gains against Bitcoin. So if it does moon, then they can buy Bitcoin with it and have a Bitcoin backing.
Yeah, and in reality, just as I'm experiencing right now, and we've got a story on it as well, which is the second you do a transaction over $10,000 or £10,000, whatever it might be, anywhere in the world, every man and his dog wants to freaking know exactly where you got it from, 17 layers back. So it doesn't really matter where you got your money from. Where if you're Bitcoin rich, it's like, well done, but if you've done it through illegitimate means, you're going to have a real struggle in the financial world that we live in today to buy anything over 10 grand. You can go out for all the dinners you want and have some nice holidays, but try and buy a car, try and buy a house. Like, good luck, because they're going to dig into your funds to the nth degree. So unless you find a friendly Bitcoiner, probably in El Salvador, that will accept Bitcoin with no questions asked, then fair play. But if you're in the Western world that like we live in right now, holy shit, they don't half check these money laundering laws. And I always think it's kind of genius how they've done it, because they pass these laws, and then because they make solicitors and kind of car companies and all that handle your money, they make them part of the fraud if they just handle the money. So now they are so scared of going to prison or being fined themselves that they become the government enforcers for tax evasion. The government, you don't even need to employ anyone. It's just the financial world. Anyone that handles 10K or more, they become the government enforcers because they're so scared of the sanctions that come with it. Yeah. And that's the way they'll do it here, right? It's very easy. They can just pass a law, and maybe it's Bitcoin related, and maybe they go $1,000 or more in Bitcoin has to have full KYC and proof of funds. And that suddenly means transacting in Bitcoin is extremely difficult unless you want to be a criminal every single time you accept more than $1,000 in Bitcoin. Yeah, totally get it. I really hope when we on the podcast next week, we'll obviously know what this one is. I really hope. I'm scared. Everything that I've heard from America right now is not being good. Obviously, for the long term in Bitcoin, it doesn't matter whether America bans it or not. Bitcoin's inevitable and going to keep going, but it could have a big impact on American investors that hold Bitcoin and them just wanting to get out of the asset if America are putting some type of loopholes or making it illegal in some shape or form. So we'll see.
I'm also wondering, and I hope it doesn't happen, with the war as well, or potential WWE kickoff and standoff, it'll be some pay-per-view event as they always have. How Bitcoin performs as well. That would be interesting to see. Is it a store of wealth when the stock markets go down?
Yeah, well, I think ultimately, like, it will diverge once the stock market becomes like it's obvious that it's underpinned by fiat money that is worthless. That will be, once that happens, once we get a 2008 crisis, like the banking crisis, and there's just a flee to safety. And it's one of them crazy things where you hold stocks and shares, but you can't sell it for cash because the banks are going under as well. So what the fuck do you put your money in? Like, everyone ran to gold, ran to property. You can't get your money out fast enough. This time, there is an asset called Bitcoin that you can convert it into now and take custody of it. So no matter when the system falls, you don't need to be like Michael Burry in The Great Short, which is getting huge insurance policies out against the bank. So when they do go bankrupt, you still get your bond paid out. You don't need to do that. Your insurance against the financial system going bust is you have your Bitcoin. But I think all these like smaller iterations of the stock market, Bitcoin will just follow. Because the problem is, like, there's loads of people in the stock market that also own Bitcoin. So when they sell some of their stock portfolio, they also sell some of their Bitcoin because that's just their risk profile. So I think we're just going to go up and down with the stock market for quite a while yet, until the stock market really has its comeuppance, which is, this is built on fiat. And when that crashes, that should be the flight to safety, which will be Bitcoin. But it depends what the escape raft look like at that point.
So also, I think we need more countries in.
We do.
And we need a bit more stability, because you know, if we continue, we have a big crash due to the US and say Turkey go in, and El Salvador will be on a loss from where they were a year ago. But then Turkey will be going in on a low, which might pump it up. I say Turkey as the example, like it's going to be Turkey, but we don't know that.
Yeah. We might literally be living through right now this transition from America as the superpower to some South American and African countries becoming a superpower. And we're just going through it where they're banning it, they're adopting it. And at the moment, all our attention is on America because, oh no, we don't want them to ban it. But all these South American countries are going to start making it legal tender. So these African countries, so's Turkey. And when we fast forward in 50 years, all we're talking about is Paraguay and Ecuador and, you know, El Salvador. Or what are they doing? Because everyone cares about what they're doing. Like, who are America again? They've been irrelevant since 2020. Like, who gives a shit about America anymore? They fucked their money up.
We can only hope.
Yeah. It looks like that's the way it's playing out right now.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to Ray Dalio's book as well, about everything that they are doing. And it talks about civil unrest and civil fighting in country as well.
It's a great listen, this book, because I've been listening to it as well. Like, really insightful. You pick up things every time you listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about money laundering, we've got the first story of the week, which was put on by Dr. 10%. But it's 8 Bitcoin money laundering convictions held up in court. And
it just seemed to make no sense. I've read the article again, and I even had a good Google about bits in the article to try and find a full story. And I think it's just a scaremongering story about Bitcoin. Like, someone who I used to work with posted it to work for someone who does, what's it, like KYC of some sort. And it was meant to basically say, yeah, buy our solution. But I read it and just went, I'm really confused. I know a lot about money laundering. I know a lot about Bitcoin, but I don't know what the fuck this story's about. And it just seemed to actually have no kind of like evidence of any sort on any front. It was FUD of a week.
Yeah. All it seemed to be is, well, a couple of individuals have gone to prison for this, but it seems to be in their charges is all they have done is converted cash into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin into cash, and Bitcoin into cash again. It's round and round, and they've just been basically selling randoms Bitcoin for cash, using that cash to buy more Bitcoin. And over that time, they've handled more than 63,000 Bitcoin and 9.7 billion euros in cash, which insane numbers, right? These guys are not fucking about. Like, they're not 2-bit guys. So I think that's probably what's got them listed on every money laundering database in the world. You trade 9.7 billion euros worth of Bitcoin, then yeah, they're going to come for you.
But it just...
Only 8 of them, and their sentences were 3 to 51 months, and 2 were just released. So they haven't got long. And I think you're right, 10%, which is all the claims here. It goes, oh, we think it came from assaults, or maybe it came from drugs. It doesn't say it did. It just says we suspect. And even though they've been sentenced, so they've heard the court case, essentially it seems to be they don't know. So they just put them in prison because money, because reasons.
Yeah, it just didn't make a lot of sense, the article. It's very badly written. So it's like, we think something's happened, we're not really sure. And it's just...
And again, it puts Bitcoin in a negative and bad light to people. Didn't need... And a lot of times, people will only read the headlines, won't they? They won't go into the depth and detail that we do to then look and verify, okay, what do you mean by this? And so they'll naturally just associate it with something bad.
I think it comes back to a point: Bitcoin isn't sexist, Bitcoin isn't racist, Bitcoin isn't political. Anyone can use Bitcoin because it's a fair system. So if some criminals want to use it, they can use it. If someone wants to get in their life and fund some truckers, they can do that. It's an actual proper currency which doesn't have government meddling in it. and it doesn't have communist governments meddling in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this whole case, the important kind of precedent that comes out of it, I think it's always probably the case anyway, because I think, people can have more than £10,000 taken off them for any reason anyway. You have to prove you're innocent because you assume guilty. But this judge sets a precedent in this case as well, basically saying if any suspect buys a number of Bitcoins with a value of 25,000 euros or more for cash from one person or entity, this represents a situation in which the Bitcoins can only have come from crime. Only if someone can prove that the money came from other sources is a transaction considered innocent. So this is what the justice system should never do, which is assume guilt unless you can prove you're innocent. And it seems to be very specific in Bitcoin here. They've upped it, which is nice, to 25,000 euros. So at least that's a little bit, they've gone with inflation a little bit there.
Yeah.
Normally they go down. Normally they started at 10K and they go, oh, it's Bitcoin. Okay, it's 2K. They actually went up to 25K, but that's horrendous, right? Literally, that means if anyone just takes out some cash, buys 25,000 euros worth of Bitcoin off someone, which is essentially just a Bitcoin right now.
Right now.
One Bitcoin. You have to, they assume you're a criminal, and you have to be in court and you have to prove that you're innocent. What world do we live in there? That is, again, we've already talked about financial terrorism that Justin Trudeau is doing in Canada. This is in Europe now, and it's the same thing. Obviously, that amount of money is quite large. It's probably not going to affect a huge amount of people, but you should be able to do what you want with your cash, right? You should be able to buy some Bitcoin if you want to buy it, but they're assuming you're a criminal now. But I guess, in the whole, they what is it, the list of things, they laugh at you, then they ignore you, then they fight you. Yeah. We're in the they fight you stage.
Yeah.
They're not ignoring or laughing at us now. They are 100% demonizing Bitcoiners. We're all money launderers.
Look at those plebs.
Their magic internet money. Magic internet money that's landing them in jail, of course, because we think that it's dangerous.
Whilst they're surfing 4chan, putting Honk Honk, which means Heil Hitler.
I actually saw a Canadian politician that said that they were going to ban all people that said honk honk on Twitter. I'm I'm so getting banned. I've done it so many times. I
was going to say I'm getting banned because I replied to Trudeau a couple of times with honk honk.
Honk honk.
And they even referred to it as that basically means Heil Hitler. I'm like, oh no. And then obviously you looked it up the other week and it's like, oh no, in 2019, apparently it does mean Heil Hitler. That's basically, I've been saying Heil Hitler underneath Trudeau's tweets for weeks. I'm like, oh no, I've been trolled. I'm going to get banned. I lasted so long. I'm going to get banned or whatever.
Oh, hopefully,
just strikes.
Hopefully we can move to Xeon soon.
Yeah. But we'll do the mining one.
Yeah, sure.
Because we're talking about obviously oil and gas from coming from Russia before, but this is just an example of someone doing a pilot. So it's only a pilot at this point, but I know there's Bitcoiners on Twitter right now doing exactly this, and essentially it's excess gas that comes out the ground. It's too far away from being useful to major cities or towns, so quite often they just burn it out into the atmosphere. They literally just set fire to it and it goes off.
So this is when they drill into oil, they drill for a gas pocket as well, and the gas comes up.
Yeah.
It's got no use, so they just burn it usually. Whereas obviously that causes greenhouse gases and God knows whatever else. And then it's actually having some use and it's reducing those gases as well, aren't they?
Exactly, yeah. And it's very hard to use that energy for anything, which is why they just burn it right now. But with Bitcoin mining, you can just transport some miners, take it out to the minefield, or out to the oil field, build a little station out there, hook them up to this gas, convert the gas into electricity, get it into the miners, and start mining Bitcoin. And this is where Bitcoin mining will be profitable, because essentially this energy is worth zero. it literally was being burnt off into the atmosphere. And instead now someone is harvesting it, putting it into miners. And this is where Bitcoin mining will end up going. Like the cost of mining, the majority of the Bitcoin mining, when you fast forward probably 10, 20, 30, 40 years, will be all like this. Like plugging a miner in at home will just be stupid because you're paying for energy. Everyone that else is mining Bitcoin is out there somewhere with some form of renewable or waste energy, and they're mining essentially for free because that's where the most sensible place to mine Bitcoin is. It's just natural that it's like how Jack Mallers says, you know, the cost of a Bitcoin transaction of sending it via Lightning is going to trend to zero. So why not just start there? It'll be the same for this. Like the cost of energy to mine Bitcoin will be zero in the end because you'll be in places like this. So just start with that end goal in mind. And if you have any cost for your energy, you will be outcompeted in the future because people will just travel to places like this and set up a massive factory of Bitcoin miners plugged right outside a big oil field, and they will mine Bitcoin and they'll be more competitive than you because they ain't paying for the energy and you are.
I wonder how much energy you get out of burning a body. Just asking for Trudeau. So there's going to be a lot of people during this time when they're going to be burnt by Trudeau. So
barbecue snake.
Yeah, could he have some Bitcoin mining going off, burning all these bodies?
He's had blackface a few times. It looked like he had a bit of a barbecue on there.
Yeah. I think that we're on to the last one.
Yeah, I was just going to say on this one, we had a story last week. It was one which I linked off LinkedIn. It was just some random about energy efficiency in Bitcoin, how it's moving towards green renewable. So I think it's interesting that we're kind of getting these positive stories. Like this is from, who is it? CNN and CNBC. So some mainstream media in America who's usually full of government propaganda, actually bringing this, and then the one on LinkedIn as well being one of the top stories on a social media site around Bitcoin being green. So it's kind of like that bit of FUD's dying. So what's next? I suppose it's terrorism, isn't it? Because the truckers have been terrorists.
I mean, before 2001, did you ever hear the word terrorism? Terrorists? You know, now it's everything.
It was Carlos Jackal.
Saddam Hussein was around a little bit, I think, in the 90s.
I don't know if he's counted as a terrorist. You had the IRA.
Oh, IRA, yeah.
I was going to say that's quite a big one.
Yeah,
you didn't hear it as much. It wasn't the reason for printing shitloads of cash. It was just, oh shit, they're blowing up bombs in Birmingham.
Yeah,
but now I guess it's just banded around against everyday people, not just leaders and dictators and obviously far right wing groups.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have called out Trudeau for being as quick as he was on just calling them white supremacists, racists, terrorists, because it really did expose the fact that they've been doing that for years on people that they just disagree with. It's a very easy way of going, oh, we don't want to tackle their points, so we'll just do the ad hominem and just make everyone think that they're disgusting people, so therefore their points were relevant.
Yeah.
And Trudeau just made it so obvious that was what he was doing that people have gone, oh, it's a bit of a blunt hammer, that one. He's made it.
It was a communist witch hunt. Was it the 70s or 80s? No, it's 60s in the US, wasn't it? So labeling everyone as a communist was their way of just, oh, you don't agree with me, you're a communist. And we've kind of switched from calling someone a far left to, oh, you're a far right now. You're an alt-right, you're a far right, you're a terrorist, you're a, I don't know, whatever else, KK member, white supremacists. Everything's got to do with the far right now because that's now evil, whereas in the 60s, so it is kind of going what you were talking about before, it's kind of like the distraction, and it's just spinning it around a different way. Everyone got bored of communism being wrong, so let's have communism being good, and let's have capitalism being bad, and then they'll spin it around in 30 years' time if it's still going a sham.
Yeah, just flip from one to the other, yeah. But it's good that, I still think they will use Bitcoin as a boiling the oceans and climate change, because climate change, I think they have really wedded themselves to climate change. I think that is such a powerful one. that they will continue to say that anything that is successful that challenges government, that will affect climate change. But it is hilarious because as Bitcoin just evolves, like Bitcoin doesn't give a fuck about climate change. What it gives a shit about is cheap energy. So Bitcoin will just go to where the cheap energy is. So it's a great just evolution that it starts in expensive energy places because that's just where you start to start any kind of startup. You just want access to easy stuff. But then as the thing gets more mature, you venture off, and eventually all Bitcoin miners, like I said, will be funded by renewable or waste energy. So they have completely picked the wrong one. And it's not because Bitcoin is green. Bitcoin is not green. It does not give a fuck about being green. It's just capitalism, and it wants cheap energy. So cheap energy, if someone's burning gas in the middle of an oil field, that's where you go.
Yeah. It's also going against the banking system at present. So you think about all the financial institutions which run on a fiat currency. So you've got investment banks, you've got retail banks, you've got ATMs, you've got printing the actual notes, you've got keeping the network alive. So you've got all these various things. So what's your guess on how much electricity the banking system uses, or fiat as a whole?
Oh, yeah.
And then tying to that, the age of consumerism. What about all the cheap plastic shit which was bought from China because it's consumerism?
Yeah, fast fashion. Yeah.
Yeah.
All come in.
Let's go on to the last story. Shitcoin corner.
You put this one in, Mr.
Well, it's a bizarre one. So I came across it. I think it was last night when I was reading through the stories. So there's some kind of game. Was it Sandbox Alpha?
Well, Sandbox is a universe, isn't it, in the metaverse?
I had no idea that it existed before last night when I read it, and I went, what the fuck's this? Reading about bloody Snoop Dogg. So it looks like you can play as characters, and they can be unique ones from Snoop Dogg's past, so different eras. For each one, you can pay, 300 sand. And sand, from my understanding, because it talks about gas fees, it's based upon Ethereum.
Yeah.
And it took about 300 sand, 150 sand, and it's around about £1.50. So that's about 100 quid to buy one of these Snoop Dogg skins or NFTs, whatever you want to call it. So Snoop Dogg's just like, I don't give a fuck. They're paying me millions for this, and it's nothing on me, is how I read it. He's just like, oh yeah, it's great.
It's crazy though, because I think, well, not only think, just know that people will be all over this.
So this is within Meta, what Facebook do?
No, it's like, so there's a Decentraland, and then there's the Sandbox, and then I think there's another one that's quite big as well. And essentially it's just like a world in which, just think The Sims.
Okay. Do you get a groin attachment in this?
Fun?
Do you get a groin attachment in this?
Maybe. I just know from the way that my kids absolutely love Roblox.
So this is like Roblox?
Yeah, you could say so, like Roblox.
So you just like wander around and talk to people, or do you actually do anything in this?
I don't think you do anything, just explore.
Oh.
Digital flex with an avatar of Snoop Dogg.
So I always thought things in a kind of like sandbox environment like GTA were quite fun. But I don't really get this whole exploring. It sounds a bit boring. I mean,
well, people love open world, don't they? Just open world exploring.
Like Minecraft seems like a really good concept if it's on that, but it doesn't sound like it's down that road.
No, not yet, but I can imagine it would be eventually. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Again, I don't want to be that parent that just dismisses everything. So like my son, he absolutely loves Minecraft. Both of them, they love Roblox, and they're like, oh, you've got to play this game and you've got to play this one. And I'm like, I don't really want to, but I'm going to And when I actually look into it, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, Minecraft, I like the fundamental ideas, but I think it's just a massive time waste, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Yeah. It's not for us, really.
Yeah, it's digital Lego. I think
Yeah.
Minecraft's fine. It's like works on your creativity, and it's got none of the downsides of this kind of bullshit, which is who gives a shit what your avatar is. It's all about what can you build, what achievements can you create within the game. But yeah, this is just, it's another freaking shill from a celebrity, isn't it? He's got a load of avatars that have weed coming out and they're smoking weed, so everyone's going to go, oh, I want this. I've just googled the price of sand and it's $3. So he's selling for $4.50 plus the gas, which is about $50. So it's basically $500 a pop, and he's selling 10,000 of them. So that's £500,000, and they all dropped today.
That doesn't seem a lot. No, actually, that's wrong. If it's
5 mil.
It's 5 mil.
5 mil.
I was going to say it wouldn't be worth Snoop Dogg doing if it was a couple $100,000 for him.
Yeah.
It's a couple of million.
But you just got to think like 5 mil for this batch. There'll be new batches, won't there?
Oh yeah, this is one batch exactly.
Yeah, but it'll be
these NFTs as well. Is when if say you get one, if you resell it, quite often baked into it is Snoop Dogg will get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of the resale value as well. So he never, every time you sell it, keeps winning.
I was going to say, it'll literally be if someone's come to him and say, can we use you as a skin? And he goes, how much? 2 mil. And we're going to make 5, you know. Yeah. I think that's literally what it is. And he's just gone, fine. It sounds shit, but I don't give a shit. That's 2 million. That's 2 million for me. I'll buy a pool. I'll buy an island. Do whatever I want.
Totally.
Mr. Simon, I actually saw a story today actually about the Dogecoin millionaire. Do you remember him?
Oh yes, yeah, the one that kind of made like 8,000% gain or something ridiculous.
Yeah, well now Dogecoin has come virtually all the way back down to the same price at what he bought at. He's been tracked. So he went up from, he mortgaged everything basically. He sold his whole life, raised 250K and bought a load of Dogecoin just before, just as Elon was tweeting about it. And he rode that 250 all the way up to like 3.5 million. And since then, that was the top. That was the SNL Live when Elon was on SNL saying Dogecoin to the moon. That was the top. Ever since then, the price has now gone down about 85%. So he's now, and people have been tracking him. So on Dogecoin, if he'd have kept it all in and hodled, he's doubled his money. So he's at 250K. But people have been following him, and he's been shilling loads of different shitcoins and putting money into them. And every single one he's gone into has been rug pulled and gone to zero within a week. So people are actually saying he's actually down on his investment now. Yeah, and a lot of the money he put in originally was dead.
He's gone. Yeah.
He took out equity out of his house and stuff. He wasn't worth 250, but he got 250 in, made 3.5 million, rode it all the way back down to 250. Now he's just in the shitcoin game going, it's fine, I'll make it back. And now he's in the negatives.
Oh dear.
This is what happens when you shitcoin, man. Even when you win, you end up losing if you don't take your profit, because you fall in love with the project. He fell in love with Dogecoin, thinking it's going to go to $10. It's going to start challenging Bitcoin. No, it's not, mate. It's a fucking meme.
It's funny, like my group, I think I mentioned this a few times, they're going about NFTs, one of my groups, and I was just like, I said, it's a digital scam. There's nothing unique about it. It's easily made and you're buying shit. And no one really piped up apart from one guy. But I haven't heard about NFTs for a long time in that group now.
No.
Probably all got wrecked.
Yeah, I'd be amazed. I know like Snoop Dogg's got a huge audience, but selling these NFTs at $500 a pop, I don't know if are people buying them. He's launching them today, it says. The 22nd, 22.
But this is the world of consumerism.
I do think so. I don't even doubt for a second whether or not people are buying them. I think they're buying them in bulk, and they'll be the fastest celebrity NFT sale ever.
Yeah, sadly, I think you're right. I did watch a CoffeeZilla one on the last NFT scam that came out. And Yeah, and it made 7 million apparently.
Wow.
But when you look at the sales, right, a load of the sales went to a load of brand new Ethereum wallets. And essentially all the money, all the NFTs got brought for something like, say, $500 a pop. Then they all got relisted on the secondhand market for less. And when you track the wallets back, essentially what they had done is brought the NFTs off themselves,
Okay. Yes.
given them a fake price, shoved them on the secondhand market, let everyone think they're getting a deal, and then they've made about 2 million off selling them to the plebs, thinking, oh, you're getting it at a discount. These are worth 7. You're getting them for 2. You're getting a bargain. And in reality, that was the scam, a layer in. So the guys that did the NFT scam just had to buy them off themselves once and then sell them for 2 million. So they got away with 2 million, not 7. But I guess when you've got a Snoop Dogg type name, you probably don't need to do that part of the scam. You just go, fuck it, Snoop Dogg said. And there'll be a load of fans that will walk up with $500 and buy his NFT. And ride it to zero.
Ride it to zero as all currencies go.
Just as they will their next weed purchase. So you know what? Have fun. Buy $500 worth of weed, $500 worth of NFT, and both of them you set on fire, and hopefully you have a good time. That'd be my recommendation. However much you spend on NFTs, also spend it on weed and just have a bit of a good time on it.
You had this with the Bored Apes. I think it's the Bored Apes or the CryptoPunks, where we saw them being bought basically by the same person, put them in the secondhand market. So it's just common enough across NFTs. It's just a pile of garbage.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with crypto, right? When you have all these, if anyone can fire up a wallet with no KYC or AML, that's the whole point of it. But that does then mean when people say, oh, I sold this for X amount, unless you can verify and have someone go, yeah, I spent that, you don't know whether they've bought off themselves. So you can't trust, you have to verify and go, well, hold on, whose is that wallet? Is that a real wallet? And if that wallet was created 4 hours ago and its only purchase was buying an NFT off this guy for 2 million, you just go, that's a load of bollocks, mate. That's your own wallet. And you just coin joined some money and shoved it over there. And then it pops up, buys an NFT for 2 million. Selling it to me for 1 million, don't make me think I'm getting a deal. I know you're scamming. I think that's it for another week, boys.
I think so. Any last comments? Dr. Evil 10%?
I suppose the whole thing about
it doesn't matter if you've got less comments.
We don't care what you got to say.
Well, I think it's just a closing point. If it can happen in Canada, it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, do you know what? I've been saying exactly the same to my friends as well. You look back and you watch it and you think, oh, interesting. You see the same with Australia as well and the way they've handled COVID. Interesting. It can happen here. I hope it doesn't, but it can happen here as well. And it can, as I said like before, it can go from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, I think almost the phrase of like, not your keys, not your cheese, that might even evolve into, well, how much stocks and money do you hold? Because they can freeze that. You step out of line once, it will be frozen. So almost the only money that is valuable will be Bitcoin money. Yeah. And that's where we know we're getting there, right? But obviously I'm in a very uncomfortable position at the moment because I'm buying a house. I got a stacked ton of Bitcoin and Bitcoin money technically in my bank account. I've even reined back my insults on Trudeau this week because I'm like, I don't want to get my fucking bank. This would be the worst time in the history of my time on earth to have my bank account frozen. I'm like, shit. So yeah, I mean, even I'm going, you know what, calm it for a week.
I've got to toe the line. Yeah. I'll just watch. I won't interact.
Until my money's over and like the house is mine. I'm like, okay, now I can go back to full troll mode because all my money's back in Bitcoin again. But in the moment, I'm like, my bank accounts for the first time nearly ever have money in them. I don't like it, but it's just there as a proof of funds to then transfer to the house owner. Yeah, it's scary. I don't like it. I'm very conscious of, if I step out of line, they could just come and freeze that money, and there's nothing I can do. They could just call me a criminal, and with the laws they've passed already, all they have to do is look at my Twitter account. I could be called a terrorist so easily. And because they've redefined the word terrorist.
Yeah, so, that's all right.
Yeah, a good closing comment. I like it.
Cool. Well, that has been episode number 44, brought to you by Mr. Orlin, Dr. Evil 10%, myself, Sir Never Look, and she was here but never here, Mrs. No Show. Peace out.